Yeah. Okay, so this is probably not the most exciting photograph I've ever shot, but it really shows, it's my kind of second home, if you like, and it's where I do all my editing and my retouching. And I found through having a shared space with other photographers how important a kind of collaborative environment is. I'm not always out shooting on the streets, although I'd like to be, but that's where I do a lot of my work. And this really was the first image that made me want to become a photographer. It's William Eggleston, and it was taken in the 70s. And I just loved how intriguing it was, the way her body is kind of like a cross, the fact that she's clutching a box brownie camera. And it just really made me think that I wanted to go to America and I wanted to explore, which led then to my first commission ever, which was for the Time Out Guide to New York. And this was brilliant for me because I'd never worked professionally as a photographer, yet I got to explore the city and explore all the neighborhoods of the city. And America really became a kind of theme throughout my career, I suppose. And this is just my bookcase at home with some of the guides that I've shot. So you can see the New York one, I did that for several years. And I would go out with a picture list, I would get sent to different cities and just really get to know the cities and get to meet the people. And it was a real adventure for me. I felt like a kind of explorer in this strange world. My love for American photography continues to this day, and I love contemporary photographers. This is work by Taryn Simon, who I'm sure some of you know. She did a project called The Innocents, where she photographed people who had been wrongly convicted of crimes in the locations that they'd been accused of convicting the crimes in. And I find her work very intriguing. And again, with the American theme, this was the book that Gemma was talking about. So this was the front cover of my little book that I self-published called Following Broadway. And I walked the length of Broadway over and over again, photographing people I met along the way. And it was really about these kind of fleeting encounters. So this was a guy at 133rd Street on Broadway. And I would just meet people, tell them what I was doing. And it was a very short encounter, but I really wanted to kind of show how the neighbour has changed so much and how the people changed so much. And for me, it was about the fleeting moments you have with strangers on the streets and the stories that you can bring to that. So this became a little book that I self-published. It was just 250 copies. But it was really nice for me to have closure to a project, because I often think as a photographer, you do these long projects and you work so hard on them, yet you don't always have anything kind of tangible to show for it. So for me, it was really important that I had something to show for it. And these were two girls at Times Square. So I walked the length, which was 14 miles over and over, and the book consisted of 40 portraits in the end of the people I encountered. So I edited it down to 40. Let's wait for the next one. Okay, phew. So I'm really inspired by other artists and literature and film. And this is obviously David Hockney painting. And as soon as I saw this, I just found it so striking, and I just loved how it kind of invited you to dive in, yet it was also very graphic in its composition. So I decided to do a project which I called Dead Time, where I photographed empty swimming pools at night, empty of people. And there was something very eerie to me about them, and there was something kind of David Lynch-like and quite intriguing. And I started discovering these different pools. When I would get sent on a job for Time Out, I would immediately try and find out where the empty pools were, and I would track them down. And I always went to a lot of ones, there's lots of Lidos in the UK, so I went to a lot of those and photographed them at night. And this became another kind of long-term personal project. And to me, I really like the cinematic feel and the kind of eerie quality. And this is a kind of theme of my work, the landscapes and the people, which kind of ties in with this current project that Gemma mentioned, which is about Lourdes. I saw this film and I just found it so intriguing. There's a real kind of emptiness there and a real silence, but I also found it really absorbing, and I decided I would do a project about Lourdes. But not being Catholic and having never been on a pilgrimage, it was quite a kind of steep learning curve, and I'm continuing to go back. And this is one of the images I took, which is the candlelight procession that they have every night. But I soon realised it was very, very difficult to photograph faith, because it's not something that's tangible, and it's a very individual, very kind of personal thing. And how do you try and translate that through the images? So I started looking at the people and the landscapes and beginning to get to know the people I photographed and looking at the kind of use of the light and the dark. So for me, it was about combining the people and the reasons that they are there, their motivations for going on these pilgrimages and going to Lourdes, with the landscapes that they inhabit. And as Gemma said, this ties in with an MA that I'm doing, so it will form part of my dissertation next year. It's an ongoing project. I've been 5 times in the last year, and it's quite strange to have Lourdes as my kind of second home now. But it's a very intriguing and interesting place. So I'm hoping to continue with that. This is another American photographer whose work I really love. He also published a book called Stranger Passing, which was portraits of people he encountered in America. But this book was called Sweet Earth, and he went and visited different experimental communities in America. And I really loved the images. There was a real stillness to them, and I decided I'd like to do a similar type of thing, but in the UK. So I started visiting communities, alternative, intentional communities in the UK. And it was a very slow and considered way of working, so I shot them all on 5:4 film because I wanted it to keep that kind of slow pace. And I was also drawn, as I often am, to the young people in these communities. And I'd really actually like to go back to these communities and see how these people are getting on, and if the young people have still decided to kind of stick with this lifestyle, or have they chosen a different type of lifestyle. But I'm very drawn to the kind of innocence of youth and these kind of pastoral settings as well. And then this is going back to my love of American photographers. This is Vivian Mayer, who used to work as a nanny in Chicago, and someone found this vast archive of her work. And she was really undiscovered as a photographer. But she's now had books, she died recently, but she's now had books published of these incredible photos. And I think she really just kind of challenged what it meant to be an artist and a photographer and a woman. So I'll end it on that.